I watched the clips back to back. Two dark cars, zero smiles, straight through the gates of Clarence House. Harry arrived around 5:20 p.m. on September 10th, and he was inside for about 55 minutes. Buckingham Palace kept it simple. Father and son had a private tea, no extra details, no spin. That's the whole official version. Short, quiet, controlled. And that's exactly why it matters. First face-to-face in 19 months, timed while Harry was already in London for charity work, and handled with the kind of silence that usually means, don't mess this up. It wasn't a reunion tour. It was a test. Can they meet without leaks, drama, or point scoring? If yes, the door stays cracked open. If not, it slams. But that wasn't the whole story. I don't think the timing was random. Harry was already in London for the Well Child Awards on September 8th at the Royal Lancaster Hotel, smiling with families, doing the handshakes, keeping it low-key but visible. If you're in town anyway, a short tea window suddenly makes sense. He stacked more stops too. A youth event with the Diana Award the next morning and other charity visits. That gave him cover to move around the city without turning the whole week into a royal reunion tour. It reads practical, not sentimental. Do the causes, then fit in, Dad. Quick, private, no speeches. And look at Charles's calendar. The tea sits right between other duties, including a scheduled audience straight after. If you're wondering why it was under an hour, that's your answer. Tight diary, tight conversation. So was this convenient? Yes. Calculated? Also, yes, it feels like a stress test. Can they share a room without headlines leaking out? We're about to find out. Here's the context I can't ignore. The last time Harry and Charles were in the same room was February 2024, right after the palace said the king had cancer. Harry flew in, they met briefly, and then radio silence. Fast forward 19 months to this week, and we finally get a real sit down again. That gap isn't normal for any family, let alone this one. And the health piece matters. The palace made the diagnosis public on February 5th, 2024. And since then, Charles has kept a careful schedule around treatment. That's why a short, tightly timed tea makes sense. Controlled setting, limited minutes, zero room for drama. It's not warm and fuzzy, but it's real. So what changed? Two things. Time, because 19 months is a long freeze. And pressure, because illness has a way of shrinking big arguments. You don't have to forgive to at least talk. That's what this felt like, not a reset, a check-in. And if you're wondering where William fits into all this, that's the next problem. Here's the part that stings. The spare seat stayed empty. I kept looking for any sign of William. Car, aide, quick walkthrough, nothing. Reports say he was close by but didn't join, didn't swing past, didn't even make it a 2-minute hallway hello. For a family built on appearances, that silence felt louder than a speech. And I get why. William's job is the crown, not the comment section. From his view, the interviews, the book, the doc series, each one chipped at trust. So when you weigh peace with my brother against stability for the future, he's going to pick the future every time. That's not warm, that's duty. But strip off the titles for a second, and it's still two brothers who can't share a room without the walls listening. Pride is heavy, so is hurt. If Charles is trying to open a door, William's the lock that won't budge, yet. And that yet matters, because nothing moves unless he does. So where does that leave the tea? Simple. Father and son can test the ice, but the bridge doesn't get built unless the air steps on it too. If he stays out, this stays small. If he leans in, even to set rules, everything changes. And that's why the next part matters. What the palace didn't say on purpose. Silence can be louder than a speech. The palace kept it bare bones on purpose. Private tea, full stop. No joint photo, no warm press note, not even a fuzzy line about productive discussions. That wasn't an accident. That was control. Keep it tight, keep it short, and leave nothing on the table for people to twist. And the staging told its own story. No balcony waves, no driveway smiles, just arrivals, a clock, and a clean exit. When the institution wants calm, it cuts oxygen. Less detail means fewer arguments, fewer traps, and honestly, fewer chances for anyone to grandstand. If this is a test, it's simple. Can both sides keep quiet after the door closes? I read it like this. Privacy isn't just manners here. It's policy. If nothing leaks, trust inches forward, and a second meeting becomes possible. If someone starts whispering, sources say, that tiny bridge snaps. We didn't get the what, but we did get the how. Careful, timed, and tightly managed. Which sets up the real question. What did each side actually need out of those 55 minutes? I think both walked in with a short list. Harry needed a normal conversation. No aides, no cameras, no gotcha questions about books, podcasts, or past quotes. Just respect and a clock that didn't run out mid-sentence. He also needed proof he could show up, say his piece, and not see it twisted by a source close to 20 minutes later. That's the only currency that matters now. Silence that holds. Charles needed something different. Calm control. A meeting that starts on time, ends on time, and doesn't set off alarms across the press office. Health, duty, legacy. He's juggling all three, so he can't afford chaos masquerading as closure. A short tea at home is perfect for that. Neutral ground, limited minutes, clear boundaries, warmth optional, order required. And no, this wasn't about roles, titles, or a magic carpet ride back into the fold. That door isn't open. This felt closer to. We can speak like adults without turning it into a headline. If that baseline holds, you talk again. If it breaks, you don't. Simple math. So what's the measurement now? Easy, what we don't hear. If the next few days stay quiet, the needle moves. If whispers start, it drops like a stone. And that sets up the real test. Can both sides sit on the story when the internet is begging for details? Now comes the part nobody can fake. The quiet. If nothing leaks in the next few days, no palace insider, no friend of the couple, no mysterious podcast hint, then this tea actually meant something. Silence isn't boring here. It's the signal. It says, we can talk like grown-ups and keep it in the room. But if even one tiny detail slips, what was said, who said sorry, who didn't, then the door snaps shut. That's the deal. No second meeting, no slow thaw, just more headlines and the same old loop. So what should we watch? Simple things. Do we see a second small interaction on the calendar? Do we notice gentler wording in public speeches? Or do they keep their distance like nothing happened? If we hear nothing, weirdly, that's the good sign. If we hear everything, that's the bad one. And one more pressure point. Money and media. If anyone tries to package this moment for clicks or a cute line in an interview, it's over. This only works if both sides treat the tea like a sealed box. No souvenirs. Because here's the truth. Trust isn't rebuilt with grand gestures. It's rebuilt with boring choices. No leaks, no digs, no victory laps. If they can do boring for a month, then we can talk about progress. And that leads us to the bottom line. What this actually means, not just for two people, but for the crown they keep circling. Here's where I land. Two facts anchor everything. This was their first real face-to-face in about 19 months, and it lasted just under an hour over private tea at Clarence House. That's not a reunion tour. That's a controlled test with the clock on the table. The timing wasn't random. Harry was already in London for the Well Child Awards on September 8th, plus a string of charity stops. Slotting a short, quiet tea into that schedule makes perfect sense, and explains the zero frills rollout from the palace. What didn't happen matters too. There's no sign that William joined or met separately, which keeps the freeze firmly in place. Commentators frame that gap as duty versus forgiveness, but let's keep it simple. Without the heir on board, this stays a small bridge, not a highway. So what does it mean? If nothing leaks, it means grown-ups were in the room. If details start appearing, it means we're back on the hamster wheel. For now, silence is the only green light. And yes, people will read that as boring. Good. Boring is how trust starts breathing again. Reports and reactions flying around. Label them what they are, reports, not gospel. My read is simple. This wasn't about roles or titles. It was two men deciding if they could talk without turning it into content. If that answer stays yes for a few weeks, you might see a second, equally dull meeting. If it slides to no, this tea becomes a footnote with nice china. Either way, the story doesn't hinge on speeches or smiles. It hinges on restraint. And that's the twist. Sometimes the loudest move is choosing not to perform. If they can stick to that, the door stays cracked. If they can't, well, we'll hear it.